Hello, my name is Carl Lentini. I'm an independent filmmaker, and my movie Men of Law here is in post production. I hope it comes out later this year. Now, so far, we've been talking to people regarding human trafficking because that's the subject of the movie. It's a fictional movie about a very real subject, but we're also branching out into health issues, which are important for everybody, major interest. And so today we have someone here to help us learn more about health issues as it relates to Qi Gong. I read this book, Born a Healer, by Master Lin, Chunyi Lin. And in the back of this book, there's a study, a scientific study done by a PhD on Qigong and its effect on clinically depressed people. And I was really interested in that, and I fortunately made contact with our guest today, who was the author of that study. It's Dr. Fran Gaik. She is a licensed clinical professional counselor, and she's a board certified professional counselor, certified personal coach, and a fellow in the Collaborative Law Institute of Illinois. Thank you, Dr. Gaik, for being here.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so how did you come across Qigong and learn about that practice?
Okay, I was doing doctoral work and came across Chunyi Lin's Spring Forest Qigong videotape. And I think it was sent out as a marketing piece, to be honest with you. It might have been the videotape or maybe just a mailer. And I didn't know anything about Qigong at the time. So as I investigated a little more, I learned that people who did Qigong increased their serotonin levels in their body. And I thought, well, that's a natural way to cure depression or to affect depression. And so I made the proposal as part of my dissertation to apply this particular exercise or strategy with depressed individuals. I had a difficult time finding people who would support, professors who would support this work. And I did. And the study took place in 2002, which was at the tail end of my doctoral work. That was the last piece that I had to do. And it worked very well. I was surprised, as were many people. I had seen that it had worked in the research that I did. It worked very well with anxiety, but there had never been a study with depression here in the United States. So we had to screen people for situational depression. That was not something that we wanted. This is like a temporary kind of a thing. We would call it an adjustment disorder with, for instance, like a divorce or I lost my job. So these were very depressed individuals. They were clinically depressed, and there were 3 bipolars in the group as well. So they were tested, given assessments. Indeed, they were all meeting the criteria for depression, and there were 3 bipolars in the study as well. And we met 3 times, and I've talked with Master Chunyi Lin, who was up in Minnesota at the time, and he came down with another of his, I guess it would be one of his students who he felt was capable to provide the Wachi, which is we can talk about that, but he was qualified. And also there was a Qigong practitioner in the area, which was in Illinois at the time, and her name was Renee Ryan, and she was from the Geneva area. So all three of them came in for the study. I can go into the details of what we did. So we randomly assigned these people into three different groups, and they were given the assessment first to see just how serious their depression was, and it measured a lot of different things, anxiety and self-esteem, things like that. It was the SCL-90 was given, and the Beck's Depression Index, which is the BDI. I also had nurses come in because one of the things that had been talked about in the research studies was the effect on blood pressure. So we had measurements before and after a transmission of the Qi by the practitioner. So in the first meeting, they met and we discussed what the study was going to do. They were given, at the time, the technology was an audio tape and videotape of the practice, which was pretty much a 40-minute kind of a, you could do either. You could do the active exercise or the internal, moving the energy through the body. And they were given no therapy to work on particular issues. So this was strictly about the Qi Gong. And in the first meeting, some of the individuals got what would be a transmission of Qi, and it would be called Wa Qi, W-A-I, Qi. And so this is a healing of transmission from the practitioner to the individual. And their name tags were marked with indication of who was going to be getting it and who was not. We did that with small and capital letters. And the individuals who got the transmission experienced a lowering of blood pressure immediate. So this was, the blood pressure was taken immediately before the transmission and immediately after. And some were as many as 20 points. So this is the purpose of the blood pressure measurement, was basically to see what's happening here. Are we really getting something? And indeed, there was. I mean, it was measurable. So they got the information about the exercise. They were told to record what they did. Was it active exercise or the internal? But we asked them to do 40 minutes a day. So they did, and there were some people who dropped out because of having certain personal issues, couldn't or didn't want to complete it. And we ended up with about, I think, 50 people to measure, 40 or 50 people. And we met for the second time, gave them the same measurements, the SCL-90 and the BDI. And at that point, everybody got a Wa Qi transmission. We didn't see the point in having a control group at that point. And then they went back and did the exercise again at home each day. And then we measured the final measurement at the third month the third time that we met, which was the end of basically 2 months of doing it. The results were phenomenal. they were all improved. I think when we first came in, Master Chunyi Lin looked at them and he said to me as aside, he said, I don't know if this is going to work with these people. They look so sad. And too late now, we're moving ahead, okay? And at the end of the 2 months, they were not the same people. They were happy. They were smiling. They were very excited about the method and wanted to learn more about it. So everybody improved, including the bipolars. There was statistical analysis that was done with any people who were on medication. I think it was a very small portion of them. They improved over and above the medication that they were taking. Some people cut back on their medication with the authorization of their doctor, of course, but the study worked very well. So on the BDI alone, some of the statistics, when you have a new medication, you have to have a statistical probability of 0.05. And on the BDI alone, it was 0.0000. So we don't know how far out that goes. So what we can say is that there was a direct correlation between doing the exercise and the reduction in symptoms. And what the study also showed was it wasn't a matter of which you did, the internal or the active, but that you were consistent in doing it, even if you only did it 20 minutes a day, because some people are busy and doing whatever. So they did it 20 minutes a day, but if it was consistent, and we also found that the results, we would say the Qi or the energy was building. So it was getting better. It didn't fall and go back up again. So it was a very, very fine example of what could be done with this particular technique, which at the time, this was done in 2002, quite a while, over 20 years ago. It was very unique. And today, I think it's becoming more popular. So overall, there are many different applications of it. And in China, they actually have Qi Gong hospitals where you would go to work on anxiety or depression or whatever, and specific exercises that would be allocated to you.
So I have just a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
So just from a lay person on the street point of view, what is Qi Gong exactly for people who aren't familiar with that?
Okay, so Qi is Qi, and this is the Chinese word for energy, and Gong, Gong, is movement. So we are not really sure what it is, but it's energy. And we know that energy is all around us, in us, and beyond. There's a wonderful book called The Field by Lynn McTaggart that talks about the energy field that moves through everything and everybody. And what is the research that I did was very interesting in that the energy moves with intent. And that was also something that she talks about in the book. So it's moving with intent. So it's a universal energy. If we don't want to put a religious context to it, you can call it God's energy or the universe's energy or whatever. And so Master Chunyi Lin studied in China, as did Renee Ryan did as well. but uh, what they are doing is building this energy and developing it in their own system. And then the master would have the ability to transmit the chi, the healing chi, to another person. So we can liken this in our culture to the laying on of hands, or um, nurses do this kind of thing as well. Um, it's um, it's not um, something that would be necessarily approved of, but they study it. Okay, and it's done in a number of different cultures. So, what is chi? We don't really know. We know that it's energy. We know that it has the ability to affect us in terms of health, and also that it needs to be balanced in the body. So, some of the things in the book, Managing Depression with Qi Gong, because the book talks about the study, but it's also, um, uh, I would say, a whole treatment plan for somebody who's depressed, and gives them a great insight into the illness of how they're getting there and what they need to do. So we talk about the chakras, the system in the body, which are supposedly energy centers. And when it's measured along the meridians, which is traditional Chinese medicine, we can see that when somebody does the exercise, the energy is enhanced, it improves. And also, when you have an emotional upset of some sort, the energy is discordant, it moves. So it's going to pull. And it's interesting along the lines of acupuncture, because if you've seen an acupuncturist for something, you're saying, well, this hurts and the needle is going somewhere else. Okay. So what they're doing is they're stimulating the meridian at one point so that it loosens up and moves to the other. But there's a fine graphic in the book that displays that. So if we have this emotional upset and the energy is moving out of one area, it's affecting the energy that affects the organs in that particular area. And then we get an illness, okay, whatever it is. The Qigong hospitals in China would act along those lines. An acupuncturist here does it. When you do something as simple as yoga or stretching, you are moving energy into a certain part of the body. So it's all based on the meridians and this energy flow. And it needs to be balanced every day. And that's what Qigong does. It will balance out the energy, and it keeps you healthy.
So the Qigong practitioner or master will harness Qi and then
Develop it.
and then they can deliver that or give that to another person who's injured or depressed or
Can do.
yeah.
And it was measured, as I said, with the blood pressure, as well as there were several anecdotal examples in the book. One woman who came was suffering from tinnitus, ringing in the ears, and she said it was going on for 9 years. And when he did the transmission of the chi, it went away. So this was pretty phenomenal. And there were a couple other examples of that. But yes, it can be transmitted in the form of healing. It's not a touching. They don't touch. It's just an emission. And I would say, people might think, well, what's going on here? If a very simple exercise is for you to sit quiet, maybe meditate for a few minutes, and let's then just rub the hands together, okay, and close your eyes, and then move your hands slowly together, and you're going to feel a tingling or maybe like a sponginess, like if a ball were there. And that's your energy field. Okay, what you're feeling is electromagnetic energy. And so you and I maybe have, a field around us, but these people who have studied and developed it are supercharged, let's say, with this energy, and so can give it.
You mentioned serotonin. Now, I'm familiar with what melatonin is, but could you just give us a brief description of that?
Sure. It has it's a neurochemical, and some people who are lacking in the serotonin would then suffer from depression. It's interesting. So serotonin is a feel-good neurochemical peptide. All right, and in Qi Gong, the exercise and the practice on a regular basis increases the serotonin levels. When you take an antidepressant, which is an SSRI, it's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So you might take an antidepressant if you're severely depressed, maybe you're having some suicidal ideation, people are concerned, okay, we're going to put you on the medication. But long term, I would explain it like this. So we've got axons and dendrites that come off of, if you remember from biology days. And the space between in serotonin comes from one of the dendrites, and in the other, it's a kind of a lock and key mechanism. So the serotonin or whatever neuropeptide is coming through is only going to fit in that opening, and it opens and closes. So what a antidepressant does, we want to keep the serotonin in here longer. So up here, there's a channel, a reuptake channel. So if it's not absorbed, it goes back up. And what the SSRI does is it gunks this up. Like if you put gum in a drain, all right? And it doesn't fit exactly. And that's when, as much as it doesn't fit, that's when you get side effects, okay? Because it just gunks it up. So now we've got the serotonin in this space longer, and it's being absorbed more. But on long term, your body is pretty smart. So it says, I don't need to make as much. So now it's going to make less serotonin, and you become more reliant on the antidepressant. And then I have to smile when I see the commercials on TV that say, if your antidepressant isn't working the way it used to, maybe you need X, okay? And the basis in some of those things is to increase dopamine, or it's an antipsychotic. So what are we doing? We need to examine your thinking, your negative thinking, and get you doing Qigong or getting treatment for the depression. and getting on the right track rather than relying on medication. So here in the United States, or I would say anywhere Western, if we have chronic illnesses, anxiety, depression, you're going to get a pill. And it's the medical field is I have to see so many patients a day, and we just want to get you up and running. And sometimes you can go in for the slightest thing and you'll get an antidepressant. Whereas in Eastern culture, you would be treated more holistically. And of course, they have the Qi Gong. Some people may or may not be into that, depending on how westernized they are. But I think that here it can be used very effectively as alternative and complementary. Okay, so if you're having a heart attack or you need surgery, you want to be here. Okay, you want to get a good surgeon and be in a hospital and have good medical treatment. And you also need to look at some of the alternative things that are used. And Qigong, it has been around for a long, long time, 4,000 years. So I think we need to understand that we are essentially energy. The body is energy and connected to spirit, and it affects all of it, mind, body, spirit. So we're, I think, becoming more open to that here in Western society. And just the very fact that insurance now can pay for acupuncture, things like that, we're being a little more open to it. But it's still, I think, very new. But I see it more and more all the time.
Well, two important questions here. One, the people in your study who improved, did you have any other contact with them? Did they maintain that improvement?
Some people would have, once the study was done, they were, of course, given my information. A couple of people might have called and said, you know, this is working very well for me. And I think in the book, it was funny because one of the gentlemen who came in had some depression, and his wife was a nurse, and she came in with him. And when she heard what we were doing, she was ready to leave. And he said, no, we're gonna do this. And he had improved dramatically. And she told me the story that she wanted to, you know, take him home. Again, this is medical training. Okay. And I did have one man who was ill with a strong medical issue. And his assessment showed that he had improved in all areas. And then it was 2 years later that he contacted me about another issue. But he came in and I asked him, I said, are you still doing the Qigong? And he said, no. But he was at the time, I would say, medically in a status quo. He was okay. And we did the testing, and his levels of anxiety, somaticism, depression had gone up, but not as high as they were at that first testing. And we talked about it, and I said, I think you ought to start doing it again, even though, you know, you're doing okay. It obviously helped you then, and he did. But it has, again, a long-term effect, and the studies show that after a year, you can see I guess, the biggest advancement. So if you've done the Qigong for a year, but what we saw in my study was it was building. Okay, so people were improving, the scores were going down in terms of the anxiety, depression, whatever, and we evaluated things like paranoia, psychoticism, but we only reported on the depression because that's what we were um, uh, measuring. And if Pfizer had this, okay, it would have taken off, but it's free. And you do it yourself. So I think it's a grand way to keep in good health and to keep your energy up and your mood, and also I think to take personal responsibility for your health, which is really important. Because if you're going in to a doctor and you say, oh, I've broken up with so and so and I'm all, and now we get a pill, now we're relying on somebody else to make us feel good. So that is not necessarily the answer. So yes, not everybody kept in touch, but I did have a few people who let me know that they were either doing well or not so.
Mm. And that leads me to the next question is, since your study was 2002, have there been other studies on Qigong that have validated or corroborated what you did?
I think just the very fact that today it is more popular and you find it in, for instance, like local schools, colleges, whatever, they're teaching Qigong classes, and you'll find it there. I haven't really followed whether or not anybody has done follow-up studies with depression and Qigong. But it's becoming more popular. I see it more and more all the time. It's easy. It's, you can get a download. You can do it in a exercise class, whatever. It is the grandfather of Tai Chi, so it came long before Tai Chi, and it was also considered part of the martial arts.
I think people would probably be more familiar with Tai Chi, but
Indeed.
said that Qigong actually came first.
Right. And it's also the internal Qigong, which Chunyi Lin calls small universe. This is moving the energy in and around in the body. This can be done lying down. It can be done sitting in a chair. It's basically balancing the energy in the body through intent. But the initiating affirmation is, I am in the universe is in my body, I am one with the universe. So we are connecting essentially with source, whatever it is. And you can think of it as, again, God, the universe, or just energy in general. There's no religious context to it unless you place it there. And then you are pulling through intent the energy into the body and moving it around the torso. And then the active exercise takes this energy and moves it through the way Tai Chi would, through the arms, the legs. And you finish with bringing the energy to what we would call in China the Dantian, which is right behind your belly button. And you are moving it and storing it there, quieting it. So it's interesting because when I did the study, I I did receive some criticism from some of the different folks, like, oh, she's doing a study about bending spoons and such. But the DSM actually, which is a diagnostic statistical manual, it actually has a classification for Qi Gong derivative syndrome, which is basically doing maybe too much Qi Gong, over energizing. People might get a little manic, perhaps, or dizzy, whatever. So it's recognized in the DSM. So it was there. We know it's there, and it's just nobody in my group had any of those issues. I mean, because we're only doing 40 minutes a day. So perhaps I think there would be more of a recognition as time goes on for the fact that this is, in fact, a healing treatment. It's more of a preventative treatment, I would call it that. In my study, it was, in fact, used as a healing application, and we got a good improvement or good result, very fine result. But if you do it on a regular basis, we're not asking you to be a healer. We're saying get your body in balance on a regular basis, so as a preventative to illness. Because when we draw the energy away from a certain area and an organ, then we're going to have problems there, and that's when illness would sit in. And if you look, for instance, at anxiety and depression, it's circular. So if I'm anxious about something, and who's not today, anxious about something, I get depressed because I can't do anything about it, and it feeds on itself. So I still do it today. I walk in the morning, and I listen to it, and I don't think you can do that right off the bat. I think you have to get in the mode of understanding the balancing of the energy. But as I'm walking in the morning, it's very quiet, and birds are singing, and it's just a little bit of dawn, and it's very peaceful. So I'm balancing out energy in the body, and I think it helps.
You said serotonin. It's a happy chemical.
Well, serotonin is feel good. Let's call it that way. For instance, the drug, what you might know as ecstasy or MMDA, is it? Yeah. What we have is young people will go to a concert or a rave, and they're partying all weekend. It's a feel good, called a hug drug. So they take it, and what this does is it leaches out serotonin from your body. And then we would have what we used to call on Suicide Tuesdays, because now we're going to crash. Okay. And because my body is leached of the drug and of the peptide. All right. And then we go to work, and we're doing okay. And then maybe 2 weeks later, or maybe even the same weekend, the next weekend, you go again and you use it again. So what we've then taught the body is up and down. Okay. And that's when we get into something like bipolar. Okay. It can be created in a certain individual if this is a consistent behavior, because you're going to crash after it depletes all of the serotonin. So it's a normal chemical in the body, a normal neuropeptide, and you need it to maintain a calm and steady mood.
I study a martial art myself, called Hapkido. This is my a certificate on it. And people always said that the master who came from Korea, he's now passed away by many years, that he embodied, in Korean they call it Qi, same thing.
Yes.
And that they did Kirlian photography
Yes.
on him.
Yes.
And his energy was off the charts.
Yes.
Compared to a normal person. And it's fascinating because from a martial arts perspective, you're defending yourself, and you learn how to cause harm to other people, obviously kicking and punching. But there were certain things that he was capable of that he wouldn't teach anybody else.
Right.
Probably because it was just too dangerous.
Right.
But so it seems like this Qi, it's just energy. It's neutral. It's just energy, and you can use it.
It can be neutral, and Kirlian photography. I had actually played with the idea of doing it at the study to see, what was going on there. But we were getting into, again, this was a dissertation, and, how complex do we want to make this? So I'm not out there to prove that she exists, and it would have been costly, but there has been a lot of examples of Kirlian photography. For instance, I once saw, it was an exhibit, and it was, I think it was related to Buddhism, and the Dalai Lama's shoes were there, his old shoes, and they had a photograph of the Kirlian photography of the shoes. They had his actual shoes there, but there was also a photograph, and it was expanded out from the shoes alone. Okay, so what is this? I mean, we're pulling from source, whatever it is, this energy, and it's building in the body, and we can say that this is a spiritual man, whatever. But yes, long ago, well, I will give the example of Renee Ryan, and she studied in China, and she was in the room with a good number of students, but she was at the back of the room with another individual who was from the United States, and they were chatting. And the instructor started his class, and they were still talking, and he lifted his hand, and he transmitted the Qi across the room, and she and the gentleman fell off their cushions. And so this was like a little slap, let's pay attention here.
Right.
So it, long ago, and this is part of in the research, and it was actually, I put it in my book because I thought it was fascinating. It was during the Boxer Rebellion in China. The Chinese Qi masters were so adept with this technique, and also with the transmission of the Qi. Many of them were killed because they thought they could stop bullets. Okay. And of course, this was new warfare with, guns and bullets and whatever. But I think that's perhaps the idea that this is overconfidence. Like, what am I going to do with this energy? Okay. And is it used for good? And I think that in this case, what a shame. I mean, these were masters, and they went by the wayside. Okay, so, but it is an ancient technique. And I think we are just now coming to realize just how valuable it can be. It's part of recognizing that you are more than your physical body. Okay. And also, how can your physical body be affected by events, stress, and whatever, and that we need to then take steps to rectify it. Because if you get in an argument with your spouse or something at work or whatever, you can, in your own mind, know it might take you 2 or 3 days to calm down and to get back into a state of calm. You still might remember it, but you're affected by it. And this is very effective to balance out that energy and release whatever, not necessarily trauma, but whatever emotional upset you have had.
When I went to the Beljanski Cancer Conference here in Austin, Master Lin was there. He got up and did a presentation, and he had that he thinks that he said, for instance, if I'm speaking Chinese now, no one will understand me.
Mm-hmm.
But he speaks English as a way of connecting us with him and what he wants to tell us. So he's saying that Qi Gong is a way of connecting the physical with the non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
That you're taking our physical body and you're using it to connect with, like you said, we don't know exactly what it is, but it's there.
Universal energy.
Yeah.
Universal energy, we'll call it. Yeah. So he's a fascinating person, actually. And I think he got a grant from Mayo Clinic, and he's worked with many, many people in healing. And he was gracious enough to come and, do the study with me. I'm glad, he reports it in his book. I mean, there are people who, look at this and like the nurse who came in and said, "Oh no, we're out of here." I also had, it's in the book as well. There was a lady, we're moving the energy through and you move it down to the third eye. And she said, "I'm not doing anything that has, talking about a third eye." So what a shame. I mean, yet you can't be open. So one of the things that I speak about in the book is to drop your cynicism for just a bit and try it and see what effect it has on you. It's very effective if you're having a restless night and you want to fall asleep. So you can be there lying in bed and be breathing in and moving the energy around in through the torso. And it disrupts the repetitive thoughts, okay? And it's now putting you in a good balanced spot to fall asleep. One of the things that sometimes maybe people might experience, certainly I have, you are resting and you're ready to fall asleep and maybe your leg jumps up. Okay. And that's basically the relaxation response has now hit your body, and the chi or the energy is able to move down through that limb. Okay. So you can do that on your own by calming yourself down with the exercise. It's very, very useful for anxiety. Some people perhaps, suffer from panic attacks or something like that. You're disrupting this thought pattern of, oh my goodness, what's happening to me?
And as a clinical psychologist, you incorporate some Qigong with?
I have, I have used it in treating anxiety and also in depression, and as well as just, as I said, people who suffer from insomnia or such. I am essentially a PsyD, a doctor of psychology, and I practice under a LCPC, which is a licensed clinical professional counselor. So I would not call myself a clinical psychologist, which is a little bit, little bit different, just to make that correction because people get a little uptight about such stuff. But I am a doctor of psychology. So this study was new. It was revolutionary. It was never done before, and it created this wonderful new technique or strategy for treating a very serious illness. I mean, people die from depression, they commit suicide, they have psychotic episodes if you're so depressed. And I think it's just wonderful that it's out there and it's being more accepted. Especially, when you look at, prior to going back to school to obtain my doctorate, I was in the insurance industry with a very large third-party administrative firm, and costs and the cost of health insurance and the way that claims are paid and everything, it's abysmal. Okay, and the health insurance industry is suffering all the time with increased rates and whatever. So, you look at this and you say, this is a simple technique that you can use to keep yourself feeling good and feeling healthy. And why not? Why couldn't it be taught in schools and taught just everywhere to maintain just general health? It's not the end all to be all, but it certainly is a very inexpensive tool.
Yeah, I did an interview recently with a lady who was trafficked at a very young age, and now she runs a nonprofit that helps other trafficking survivors. So I'm sure there's psychotherapy, but
Yeah.
Qi Gong could be something that
Right.
could help people who went
Well,
through.
you do it in conjunction with, as I said, an adjunct and alternative complementary therapy. So you might do cognitive therapy with somebody like that, and grief of my loss, what I have, suffered through. And the idea is that that was then, this is now, we're in the present moment, and what can I do right now to make myself whole? One of the great affirmations that I always tell people is, I'm strong, healthy, and whole. And that's what we need to think. And so many people come in and, oh, I have this and I have that, and nothing is going right. Okay, that's all negative thinking. And with one single thought releases a neuropeptide that cascades through the body. And then if we're going to do that again and again and again, you're going to be in a depressed state. So it's not just about happy thoughts. It's about, this is what I need to change my thinking, my logic. We would call it twisted logic, to more of a more positive way. I mean, I think it was Seeley who went in and just watched funny videos and got well from it. Okay, so this is again, let's get out of the depressed state, and what are we going to do about it? It's one step in front of the other. It's not a magic bullet that's going to, or pill that's going to make you feel great. But that's what we want in Western society. We want it now. We want to feel good now. And this is as I said, your most benefit, the studies show, is after a year of doing this. But it does build. Okay, so why not?
So if Mayo Clinic or some organization or benefactor came to you and said, here's $1 billion, do a study or do a series of studies, what direction would you go? What would you
I
do?
think the studies in this particular area need to be using the Qigong strategy in terms of other illnesses. For instance, the bipolar would be a good one. And certainly, um, uh, we've got a lot of new technology coming in, like with CRISPR, and we're changing genes and things like that. So the Qigong in illness, even if you have a predetermined genetic disposition for some illness, it has to be activated. It has to be, and that's usually through stress or something like that. And I think that the studies that need to be done are for other illnesses and other perhaps people who are prone to certain situations, even schizophrenia. I mean, it kicks in usually around 21, 22 years old, but that's when somebody is launching into adulthood. How stressful is that? Mom's kicking me out. You see a lot of it in the armed forces. They go away, and now we've got somebody who comes back, and certainly there's stress there. So this is a technique that reduces stress, that reduces the effect of stress on the body. So it's, as I said, more importantly, aside from the fact that somebody can transmit Qi to another, it's a preventative type of strategy. And there's lots of preventive things. What diet I have, whether I have exercise, my thinking, smoking, alcohol, I mean, a lot of things. So if we're doing things correctly, and taking responsibility, individual responsibility for your health, you should be just fine. You should, and you don't want to get into stinking thinking.
Stinking thinking.
It's easy to do. It's easy to do. I mean, how often you're driving down the street and you're, angry with somebody, and that anger is there, and then you come in and now somebody says good evening to you and you're all riled up. No, you gotta, so that's stinking thinking.
Well, we all do that.
We all do it. So this is part of just life, and as I said, it's a preventative to illness. You want to be balanced. You want to balance that energy out. And again, that meridian graphic that I showed you, where it pulls away from one area, you're to compensate in another. That's those are the first steps to something going wrong.
In Qigong, they talk about blockages, energy blockages,
right?
Pain, problems, disease, whatever. I think of it in terms of physical. Like if I injure my arm, it's swollen, it's bloody, it's bruised. So there's obvious blockage that's happening, and your body is all responding to it. So that's a physical way of thinking of it for me. I want to visualize it. But
right.
Other energy blockages that we can't quite see that reside in the body somewhere.
Well, this is just like I said, when you are falling asleep and suddenly your leg jumps up. Okay, there was a blockage there. And where did that blockage come from? Maybe it was from a physical thing that you did, okay, stretching in a wrong way or moving in a wrong way. The idea even of Qigong can be translated to sleep. When you are sleeping, you are in a state of relaxation. It is basically, it's RR, it's the relaxation response. So we fall asleep, and maybe you were not real happy when you went to sleep, but during the sleep process, your brain processed what was happening, and you wake up in the morning and you're feeling a little bit better. And that's why people say, well, let's talk about it in the morning, you know. So blockages can occur from all kinds of things, but essentially it begins with emotion. It begins with, it can be physical, like you were talking about an injury. I injured my shoulder, and now there's a blockage. So what a practitioner would do, whether it is a massage therapist or chiropractor, they're going to loosen it. And you've had that where they just press really hard on that knot, and suddenly it feels better, it loosens up. So that's also the energy moving through in order to do the healing. People might put a heating pad on it, and you know, it releases. That's what you want. The original Freudian thinking was based on the idea of a release. So whatever it was, release of anxiety or whatever. And he only saw 100 patients and put a whole theory about it. So it's, you know, in today's world, can we be relaxed and calm? Yes, but you have to do certain things: meditate, exercise, eat right. You know, even foods affect your mood. Sugar, caffeine. You know, I've had people come in and we're having 4 panic attacks a week. And when we look at what we're drinking, Mountain Dew and, you know, coffee and whatever, just stop that, and they went away. So again, this is just, someone might say common sense, but mostly it's education about how this is affecting my body. And also, I am truly not my body. Okay, I'm spirit within.
Right.
And my emotional being affects my physical being. It's joined, absolutely joined. Mind body connection, it's there.
Right. Right. In the martial arts, we talk about that too: mind, body, spirit. You're never just one. You're working on all of them. And
Right.
the old grandmaster would say the mental part of it is more important than the physical part.
Oh, absolutely.
Much as you're sitting there sweating and
Absolutely. And you can do things with, I've worked with, you know, hypnosis and self-hypnosis as well. And I would just give a brief story. When we were doing boards I went back to school as an adult. And so the boards, you get 10 questions that can be about anything that you've studied in the last 4 years, and you are being graded by, I think it was 4 or 5 professors, okay, and they're going to read your answer, and it's all essay. I mean, how stressful can that be? Okay, and I did this rather than going in with the idea of thinking I was going to be critically ostracized for everything I wrote. I did a little self-hypnosis like about a week before. And the thinking was, I'm being asked from people who are on an island and know nothing about psychology. And I have to tell them everything I know about how to treat this particular problem. And it worked because I didn't get stressed out. And when I got the test and I looked at it and I looked down the list, I thought, I got this. Okay, I can do this. But again, this is getting ego out of the way. Okay, it's not about me being critically judged whether I hit every point. It's about, can I make every point to somebody to help them? And it worked just fine. So yeah, you gotta put your head in the right spot. whenever you're doing something and get out of the way. Even when I was doing this study, I was like really, tense about it. And again, I say I meditate every morning, and I was like, and so the response came in of, what are you so nervous about? Okay. And I said, my study. And they said, it's not your study, it's our study. So, so it's meant to be out there. It's meant to be, and it's going to go fine. And by golly, it did. It was, as I said, it was a revolutionary type of treatment. And I think everybody ought to do it.
Mm. Wow. Well, I often say this, I could talk to you for hours. I really could.
Yeah.
I hope to have you back again and talk further.
Sure.
There's
Sure.
lots of other areas we could go into. So
I would like that. I look forward to it. I heartily recommend that people take the idea of personal responsibility for my health. And I can't imagine why you would give that responsibility to someone else, to a doctor, to anyone who, sometimes you go in and you're saying, yeah, but this, and he's saying, no, and we're going to give you this. And it may not be the right thing for you. So we have to look at it and say, this is my body, my spirit within this shell, within this physical frame, and I need to care for it as best I can. And if somebody is suffering from whatever, an illness or depression, anxiety, whatever, and they don't want to do it, then we can say maybe they're just not ready. Maybe they need to suffer more until they would try anything, because this works. It worked very well. So try it, see if it helps you. If you can't do it every day, do it 3 times a week. And you can do it sitting in the car. You can do it lying in bed. It doesn't have to be the active exercise. It's just basically saying, I'm here, I'm connected to whoever, okay, and I want this energy in my body and I want it healing. One of the things in the book is, somebody who's depressed, you're in the bed and you got the covers over your head and I don't want to go out and the drapes are closed. And in the Qi Gong exercise, there's actually, I'm holding up my arms and taking energy in from the universe into this body. So what a dichotomy. We're totally different. Different postures, different mindset, and whatever. So, and in today's world, we need that. We need to think that there is positive energy, and I have the ability to capture it. Yeah.
Well, there is, and I think we have that ability. I like how Mr. Lin says, whenever you do Qi Gong, put a smile on your face.
Yes, just the very act of smiling is putting an attitude on. Okay, I have something to smile about. Yeah.
Right. Smile and your body will respond, sort of.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, tell us again, Dr. Gaik, the title of that first book.
The first book is Managing Depression with Qi Gong. Mm-hmm. It's, I don't know if we can see it there. And this was published in 2009. And so it's a how-to about getting well from depression. And in the back, it actually has in the appendix a step-by-step in the Qi Gong exercise in the Qi Lin's Spring Forest. He allowed us to put that in there. You can also get downloads from Spring Forest Qi Gong. I think it's .org, and get it right on your phone and do it that way as well. But this book talks, it's giving a whole treatment plan. It's giving explanation of what Qigong is and the research that I did. And I would say it's a nice primer for understanding what the practice is, and also Master Lin's technique. What he did was he put a generalized health Qigong practice in terms of this small universe. And that's the basis of it. And then the active exercises, moving it through the body. So yes, it's managing depression with Qigong. It's on Amazon, and you can get it there.
I'll put links in the description of this video for people.
Right.
And just to briefly mention, you have a new book coming out?
I do. I've done some work with higher consciousness, and what would be channeling in the manner of Edgar Cayce. And that book is Dialogues from Beyond. And it's available right now through Durant's Publishing. And the website, my website for that is just up, and thinking that I may do some work along those lines, because that book was with 100 different sessions with folks, and gives some real different perspectives on things. And so that website is sourceaccess.net. And we'll see, I think there may be some people who read that book and then say, this is very interesting, I would like to have a session on that. So that's available right now through Durant's, and I think it will be available through Amazon in the next few weeks. That is like really fresh off the press.
Okay, great. Again, I'll put the description.
Different perspective on reality, on many things, coming from higher source.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Fran. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I have enjoyed talking. Thank you for the interest in my work, and all who are listening to this. And God bless and speed with anybody who is trying to be healthier and better, just a better person, higher consciousness.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.